In third generation form, BMW's X1 has become what the X3 used to be, a fully fledged family SUV, and a much more sophisticated one thanks to a completely new cabin. There's mild hybrid, plug-in hybrid and full electrification on offer, and a much more credible executive vibe.
Once the X1 was the SUV BMW was somewhat apologetic about. Looking at this very credible Mark III version, it's difficult to remember what a botched-together job the first generation E84 design from 2009 was, based on an old 3 Series touring estate. The Mark II F48 version of 2015 was much better, but still felt rather X3 light. This replacement Mark III U11 series car, though, is a model you might well feel like downsizing into from an X3. And if you did, there could even be things about it you might prefer. Under the bonnet, a whole multitude of changes have been made towards electrification, as part of which BMW has improved its 48-volt mild hybrid technology for most of the conventional petrol and diesel variants. We're trying that here, at the same time as expanding and improving the X1's plug-in hybrid range. In addition, like the X3 with its iX3 model, there's now an all-electric EV version on offer, the iX1, underlying the brand's current preference for a multi-drivetrain choice amongst existing models, rather than the kind of standalone EV designs we're seeing from obvious rivals. The iX1 isn't our primary focus here, but there are concerns that running it on a platform primarily meant for fossil fuel will compromise the end result, especially as the platform in question is merely a revised version of the same UKL chassis that underpinned the previous generation X1. Where this Mark III X1 does claim to be cutting edge is in its cabin design, which won't even be recognisable if you happen to know the old car, thanks to the freshly added Operating System 8 tech. And it's essential that you're impressed by it, because BMW is pitching premium prices here, significantly above those being asked by slightly larger mainstream brand mid-sized Qashqai class crossovers. This X1, like its predecessors, claims to be a posher choice, selling alongside key rivals like Mercedes GLA, Audi's Q3, the Volvo XC40, the Lexus NX and the Jaguar E-Pace. Can it stand out in that company? Well, you'll need the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test, to find out. Going right back to the original X5 of 1999, BMW has a history of bringing us sweet-handling SUVs. The X1 model line, though, hasn't. Even the rear-driven first-generation version of 2009 wasn't very interesting to drive, but sold well anyway, and no one really noticed when its 2015 replacement switched to a predominantly front-driven platform originally developed for a Mini. Since only a mildly evolved UK L2 version of that same chassis characterises this third-generation version, you wouldn't expect this U11 Series X1 to be the ultimate driving machine in its segment, and it isn't. We can't help feeling that to be a missed opportunity, because the posh part of the small crossover class is crying out for something offering a bit more driver engagement. If you want that, you'll find a little more of it on offer from the brand's mechanically similar but more coupe-like X2. Not that traces of proper BMW DNA are entirely absent from the various front-driven S-Drive and all-wheel drive X-Drive variants on offer. Press on a little at the wheel and there are certainly flashes of Munich mastery. In the steering, for instance, once you've got over its general anaesthesia, you realise that its responses are actually super direct in proper BMW fashion. This third generation X1 also benefits from some really clever handling upgrades that have considerably enhanced the way it can tackle the tarmac, should you find yourself running behind for a ballet lesson or late for your offspring's lessons. A so-called near actuator wheel slip limitation package improves agility and traction, which even on the cheaper front-driven versions you really notice at speed out of slower corners. Or in slippery conditions where accelerating from rest can be aided by a selectable drive-off support feature that gives the front wheels extra traction if they're scrabbling on ice, snow or mud. Ride quality has taken a step forward too, mainly thanks to the fact that the special lift-related dampers we first saw in the current 3 Series have been fitted across the range. Clever shock absorbers incorporating structures that provide extra damping at the extremes of wheel travel. These have allowed BMW to adopt quite a firm sporting setup, but also one able to deliver a fluent ride over road surface imperfections. So even though this 3rd generation X1 better resists body roll through the bends than its predecessor, helped by the stiffer chassis, new axle kinematics and performance control torque vectoring, it won't punish you for that on the school run by unsettling itself over speed humps and trembling through tarmac tears. That's true even if you can't stretch to this test car's pricey M Sport trim level that gets you the brand's M adaptive suspension. If you can, then that more sophisticated damping setup alters ride quality via the new My Mode selectable drive settings that all X1s get to alter throttle response, steering feel and gear shift timings. There are 3 main ones with the usual sport and efficient settings, joined by a personal mode, a balanced option which presumably is meant to replicate the old comfort setting, a good example of changing something which didn't need to be changed. Most of the time you're probably going to want to leave the car in efficient and simply enjoy the smooth shift action of the Steptronic gearbox and the impressive cruising refinement. That's no accident, by the way. Redesigned exterior mirrors, acoustically optimised tyres and an improved engine and transmission mounting all contribute, the latter significantly reducing engine vibration on startup. The redesigned integrated braking system's a decent improvement too, bringing together brake activation, the brake booster and braking control functions all within a compact module for quicker, sharper pedal reactions. You're going to want to know about engines, and this being one of those occasions where everything is changed, even if at first glance nothing seems very different. We've already mentioned the updated chassis. Well, bolted to it is an all-new 7-speed Steptronic auto gearbox, clever enough to adopt its slicker change strategy and larger gear spread to the traffic conditions and topography of your chosen route. That auto's now mandatory in this car because it incorporates the 48-volt electric motor now integrated into the 2 conventional mild hybrid petrol units that most customers will choose. There are 2, both featuring the company's latest generation twin-power turbo tech, a 170 horsepower 3-cylinder 1.5 litre unit for the S-Drive 20i, and a 218 horsepower 2-litre 4-cylinder engine for the xDrive 23i variant we're trying here. Both spin happily up through the revs under prompting from your right foot and aren't separated too greatly in performance. The S-Drive 20i making 62 miles an hour in 8.3 seconds en route to 134, with this xDrive 23i improving that to 7.1s and 145 miles an hour. As part of this, in either case, the mild hybrid system delivers a 19 horsepower boost from that gearbox mounted e-motor we just mentioned, which is fed by a little 1 kilowatt-hour battery. This helps to power the car both when pulling away from standstill and during mid-range acceleration, but is too feeble to ever propel this BMW without the aid of the engine, unlike, say, a Toyota self-charging full hybrid engine would be able to do. That's why mild hybrid tech doesn't make as much difference as you might hope to efficiency figures. Sounds good in the showroom though, and so does the engine of this xDrive 23i model if you activate the iconic sounds option you'll find in the drivetrain and chassis section of the rather snazzy curved centre screen. Reviewers tend to be rather sniffy about systems that artificially amplify and embellish the engine note through the audio speakers, but we think this one sounds quite realistic, and if you don't agree or perhaps understandably find it a bit intrusive and pointless in an SUV, you can always turn it off. The aural experience wouldn't be quite as enjoyable with a diesel engine beneath the bonnet, but if you've ignored all the doomsayers, and you're still committed to fueling from the black pump, that probably won't bother you very much. We should point out that the 2-litre 150 horsepower 4-cylinder diesel fitted to the S-Drive 18D, the base diesel variant, does without all the mild hybrid tinsel. Instead, it's been enhanced with a probably more useful package of upgrades to the pistons, the turbocharger, the common rail injection system and exhaust gas recirculation setup, all of which have made it smoother and more efficient as it accelerates to 62 miles an hour in 8.9 seconds on the way to 130 with the same 360 newton meters wave of torque that makes overtaking so easy in this X-Drive 23i version. But of course, in an S-Drive 18D, you get it all with fuel consumption that's around 20% better, which you might think just as well given the price of diesel these days. If you want your diesel X1 with all-wheel drive, you'll be pointed toward the more powerful X-Drive 23D, which offers 211 horsepower with 400 newton meters of pulling power and makes 62 miles an hour in 7.4 seconds en route to 140 miles an hour. Yet it can still average over 50 mpg in regular restrained driving, which might make that 23D variant the sweet spot in the range, were it not for its slightly off-puttingly high asking price. For an even more economic X1, you're inevitably to turn to a variant you can plug in, and there are now several in this revitalised X1 lineup. The headlines here have been garnered by the all-electric iX1, but before considering that EV, we'd look first at the brand's new era plug-in hybrid power plant. It's been considerably refettled for installation into this third-generation X1, and now comes in a choice of two all-wheel drive variants, the X-Drive 25e and 30e. As with the single PHEV version of the previous generation model, this powertrain's based around the 1.5-litre 3-cylinder petrol engine we mentioned earlier, but in this 5th generation BMW eDrive form, it's mated to much gutsier electric motors, powered by a 14.2 kilowatt-hour battery that's twice the size of the one fitted to the old X1 X-Drive 25xe. All of this transforms the plug-in proposition delivered by this car, if you're in the fortunate position of being able to afford it. First, in terms of speed, the X-Drive 25e has a 109 horsepower motor and a total output of 245 horsepower, while the X-Drive 30e has a 117 horsepower electric motor and a total output of 326 horsepower, an awful lot for a little SUV, about the same in fact as BMW's original E30 generation M3 road rocket, as is the 5.7 second 0 to 62 mile an hour time. Yet rather than burning through unleaded at a catastrophic rate, as that classic race replica did, the X-Drive 30e, like its X-Drive 25e stablemate, can, when fully charged, run for up to 55 miles without using any fuel at all. That's a 24-mile improvement, by the way, on the previous generation X1 X-Drive 25e plug-in model. Of course, if EV mileage is everything, then nothing but the all-electric iX1 model will do. From launch, BMW decided to offer this dedicated EV only in its top all-wheel drive X-Drive 30e form, in which guise the twin-motor powertrain puts out 313 horsepower, offers 494 newton meters of torque, and delivers a rest to 62 mile an hour sprint time of just 5.7 seconds en route to 112 miles an hour. More relevant, of course, is the range figure between charges of the beefy 64.7 kilowatt-hour battery, reportedly up to 272 miles. Whatever kind of X1 you decide upon, you'll find that in third generation form, it's as technologically sophisticated as you'd hope. This car can now also park itself more effectively, automatically reverse out of spaces, adapt its speed to prevailing limits, search for car parks as you drive, and potentially deliver all the expected level 2 elements of drive system assistance that you'd expect from a modern family car. It does, in short, bring the fashionable SUV genre bang up to date. This third generation X1 completes the visual switch of this model line from crossover to fully-fledged SUV. It's larger than its predecessor too. 53mm longer, 24 wider and 44mm taller. It's certainly enough to leave some potential X3 customers wondering whether they really need to find the extra for one of those. This X1 has something of the look of a larger class SUV from the side as well, where the impression of a stretched silhouette is aided by a strong shoulder line above these flush-fitting door openers. It's not illusory either. These days, an X1 is 4.5 metres long, only 60mm shorter than a first-generation X3. A lower rising character line connects plastic-clad flared arches, housing wheel sizes between 17 and 20 inches. We've got optional 20-inch M-Light alloy rims here. At the front, slim LED headlights flank the large, almost square BMW kidney grille. Its contouring highlighted by a three-dimensional surround which will stand out a bit more if you don't go for the all-black treatment applied to this top M Sport model. Silver and chrome grille and lower air intake highlights feature plentifully on lesser versions, while M Sport variants like this one are marked out by larger cooling air inlets in the sides of the front bumper. At the back, where horizontal lines dominate, there's a narrow rear window, chrome side details and a prominent under-ride protection element in the rear apron, which gains a diffuser with M Sport trim. Here we've got a car with adaptive LED headlights, which means that these LED light clusters illuminate in a striking L shape and get distinctive patterning in the sections extending into the sides of the body. Right, time to take a look inside and sample a user experience that actually starts when you move within 1.5 metres of the car with this rather smart leather-bound key in your pocket. At that point, the X1 automatically unlocks itself and there's an orchestrated lighting display using both exterior and interior lamps. If you specified the brand's Digital Key Plus feature, that'll work with an enabled Apple iPhone too, using near-field communication access technology you can share with up to 5 other users. So, if your grown-up children happen to be among them, you can implement a special configuration that restricts top speed, engine power and maximum radio volume. It's all the sort of thing that might make you pleased that you paid the extra for a premium badge on your little SUV. Once the quality door thunks shut, you'll find that the welcome sequence continues inside too, where this curved display panel, the highlight of this completely redesigned cabin, shows a choreographed startup animation, a personal greeting and useful information at the same time as loading the car's BMW ID settings and connecting your smartphone. We've already seen this new generation style of interior design for small BMWs with the second generation 2 Series Active Tourer small MPV, and there aren't many differences over that model here, even to the point where you won't even feel that you're sitting that much higher. More SUV-like the exterior of this car might be, but inside, like its predecessor, it still feels very much a family hatch-derived crossover. Still, it's without doubt a very plush one. Highlights including the sliver-like inset ambient lighting strips and the double-stitched dash top you get on plusher models. Along with a myriad of surface changes, there are an awful lot of different materials on show. Aluminium, piano black lacquer, vinyl, brush chrome and fretwork design joining the usual soft-touch plastics, and it all feels very high-end. Unless you turn your attention to the rather less opulent, lower panelling or the flimsy plastic surrounds used for the seat runners. What's important is that the front seats themselves are very comfortable, helped by prominent side bolsters and a good range of adjustment. Even larger folk won't want for head and elbow room, though it's disappointing that these chairs don't come with lumbar support as standard. The dash design is quite different to that of the previous generation model. There's no conventional centre stack, and you're not fishing about between the seats for driving mode buttons and handbrake switches. Instead, as in the brand's flagship iX SUV, there's this floating centre armrest with open storage beneath and a leading edge incorporating the primary drive buttons, a knurled volume roller and a neat tab-like minimalistic gear selector, which works very well and makes you wonder why the industry persisted with old-fashioned gear sticks on auto models for so long. Fascia buttons are noticeable by their absence. There are only two central ones, both for demisting. Where climate controls and a radio would once have been in the centre of the dash, there's now merely a Tesla-esque style slot for your smartphone with a colour-coordinated surrounding frame and a silver bar to pin it into place like the restraining rail provided for a passenger on a roller coaster. The idea is that you can better keep an eye on your smartphone screen as you drive, which you might think either convenient or dangerous, depending on your perspective. Also controversial is the rather disappointing decision to dispense with the old model's lower iDrive rotary controller, which means that everything's got to be done either by voice or by stabs at the centre screen. Still, there's ample compensation in terms of the quality in evidence wherever you look. There's a soft touch upper dash above a smart silvered centre fascia section decorated with narrow horizontal vents. Use of the smudge-worthy, shiny piano black trimming you get with rivals has been kept to a minimum, and build quality from the German Regensburg factory is difficult to fault. Arty design touches include the unusual door catches and the diamond-themed Harman Kardon speaker panels, or more overtly the extra two options that BMW has added to this car's portfolio of My-Mode drive settings: Expressive, which gives you more vibrant cabin lighting colours, and Digital Art, which to both screens adds this trending quantum garden piece of modern art from award winner Cao Fei. We need to return to the major feature of note here though, that curved screen. The slightly smaller 10.25-inch right-hand part is the digital instrument display you view through this lovely chunky three-spoke sport steering wheel. In the past, we've criticised BMW instrument screens for confusing design and a lack of customisation options, the absence of full-screen mapping, for instance. This display is much better, customisable via a little cog-designated button next to this Tesla-style rotating switch on the right-hand wheel spoke. The content menu determines what you see in the middle of the screen: a digital speedo, journey data, drive assist features, a route preview with a compass, media and radio selections, a G-force meter and GPS mapping. If mapping, you might want to select the third of the three available layout options, which displays your route to the right of a slash across the screen. The other two layouts give you a choice of either a rev counter or a power meter. All of this is complemented by further customisable settings for the head-up display. Should your chosen X1 feature it, there's a choice of standard view, assisted view or sport view options, all with speed sign recognition. And this top M Sport trim level adds in full use of BMW's latest augmented reality nav system tech, which brings key journeying features directly into your line of sight. Anything the instrument screen can't tell you, and much that it can, will be found on the accompanying 10.7-inch control display to the left of it, a recipient of the company's latest generation Operating System 8 software. All the car's climate functions have been inhaled by this screen and sit in a very detailed climate menu accessible by a virtual button in the centre of its lower frame. The right-hand edge of the monitor has shortcut options for media, phone and nav, plus a menu option connecting you into a confusing layout full of tiny icons, which is why you'll probably want to stick to the tiled screen you get when the display first springs into life. This shows large widget sections starting with primary features like telephone, radio and mapping, beyond which you can swipe right for things like trip data, weather info, compass settings and traffic conditions. It's probably easier, though, to access what you want by gaining mastery of the car's intelligent personal assistant voice control, now improved and, in our view, arguably one of the most advanced systems out there. It can even learn your routines and automate them. For example, lowering the driver's window when you reach the ticket barrier each day at your office entrance. And the voice activation element is properly intuitive. Just preface what you want to say with, "Hey BMW." However you access all the media functions, there's an awful lot to get to grips with. Some of the functions are properly cutting edge. The 5G Wi-Fi hotspot, for instance, ideal for TikTok-obsessed teenagers. And some others are slightly questionable, like the optional interior camera, which effectively gives you in-car CCTV. BMW calls this a security monitor, but divorce lawyers across the globe will gleefully seize upon its possibilities. You might, though, like the way the interior camera allows you to take journeying pictures of occupants and share them with your friends. More usefully, there's wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, plus sections for news, weather and podcasts. Quite a few features require access via a BMW ID, which you'll have if you're using the My BMW app, and which you can add to any designated smartphone. So personal interior settings and activated features can be instantly communicated to the vehicle whenever you're driving it. You can add to that menu of features in the course of your ownership life, thanks to over-the-air updates and extra tech that can be purchased via the online connected drive BMW shop. Enough on screens, what about more practical stuff? Well, there's not much to criticise ergonomically. The seat positioning delivers all-round vision that's generally unimpeded, helped by the low window line, but not by the rather small expanse of rear tailgate glass. The slim A-pillars are usually helpful too, though their aggressive angling can sometimes impede forward visibility at junctions and pedestrian crossings. You'd hope for lots of storage space from the interior of an SUV. Improving that was, after all, part of the reason for the cabin redesign. We're not totally convinced by the result. Now, you might not want to use the lower open part of this floating armrest either, because it would leave your items on general display to light-fingered car park villains, or because the shallowness of the lower tray will leave them sliding around everywhere. The stitched armrest at the top of this piece of automotive furniture has storage space within, but not much. And some features you might hope for from a crossover or SUV of this type, like under-seat drawers or an overhead sunglasses compartment, don't feature anywhere here. Still, the basics are well provided for. Double cup holders with twin USB-C slots and a 12-volt port just below them. Decently sized compartmentalised door bins with bottle holders. Ticket clips on the sun visors and a spacious glove box. Right, time to take a look in the rear. Now the doors open wide enough to make leaning in for the attachment of car seats and belt buckles easy, which is a good start. And the wheelbase length of this third generation model, 2,692mm, is only 22mm longer than before, but BMW still claims considerably more interior room, thanks to the adoption of a more compact 3-link rear suspension setup. Part of a concerted effort to squeeze as much interior space as possible into a footprint that's a mere 181mm longer and 46mm wider than a 1 Series hatch. A slightly higher set seat base than you get in that kind of ordinary hatchback makes an X1 also easier to get into. Once inside, as promised, head, leg and elbow room are all usefully improved compared to the previous generation model. And as a result, this part of the cabin compares well to what you'd get in a rival Mercedes GLA or Audi Q3, particularly when it comes to leg and headroom. It also has to be said, though, that you'd get considerably more space in the back of a mainstream branded family SUV in this class, like say a Volkswagen Tiguan or a Ford Kuga. As with the previous generation X1, there's a sliding rear bench which offers 130mm of back and forth adjustment, though also, as with that older model, unfortunately you have to pay extra for it, and that feature isn't available at all if you choose the plug-in hybrid powertrain. Reclining backrests, which adjust through 4 positions, are standard across the X1 range though, and scalloped front seat backs free up extra space for your knees, making it possible for one 6-footer to sit behind another in reasonable comfort. Some of the darker trim options can leave it feeling a bit gloomy back here, but if budget permits, you can alleviate that issue by paying BMW extra for this lovely two-piece panoramic glass roof, one of the biggest of any on the market, fitted to a car of this size. As with most crossovers in this class, there's still really only comfortable space for two adults who will be able to use this central armrest with its integrated twin cup holders. If you do need to take a third person, you'll find that this central transmission tunnel is set low enough not to get in the way too much. Practical touches include central vertical vents above twin USB ports, beneath which is a shallow tray that on the move would be useless for just about anything. Better to put your odds and ends into these huge door bins, which incorporate usefully sized bottle holders. You're also favoured with ISOFIX fastenings for the outer two seating positions, netted seatback pockets and overhead grab handles with integrated coat hooks and reading lights. OK, let's finish with a look at the boot, accessed via this standard powered tailgate, which, with the comfort access feature fitted, can be activated with a sweep of your foot beneath the bumper. Access with small items would be far easier if instead of raising the rear hatch, you could simply lift the tailgate glass, as is possible with some versions of BMW's similarly sized 3 Series Touring. Annoyingly, BMW hasn't fitted that feature here. Still, despite the fact that this X1 is 209mm shorter than that 3 Series Touring estate, it still manages to offer up the same cargo capacity figure, 500 litres. You might be disappointed to find that figure actually 8 litres worse than was offered by the previous X1 design, but it's 120 litres more than you'd get in a 1 Series hatch, and it does get within 50 litres of the far pricier X3. To give you some class perspective, a rival Audi Q3 has a 530-litre boot, but a Mercedes GLA offers 495 and a Volvo XC40 can offer just 452. You'd expect the cargo capacity of a plug-in hybrid X1 to fall a bit with all these rear-mounted batteries, but actually the two PHEV variants can still offer 490 litres, as can the full-electric X1. If you've taken our advice and specified the sliding rear bench we have here, if it can be offered on the variant you want, then you'll find that this can be a very versatile load space. Up to 8 carry-on suitcases will fit. Even without that feature, you can still achieve quite a lot of cargo area flexibility by setting the reclining backrests in their most upright cargo position. Do that and up to 90 more litres of stowage space can be freed up, which might be just enough to get bulky suitcases in on an airport run, for instance. You don't get an adjustable height boot floor, just a leading edge to the cargo base that raises to reveal a little extra space beneath, though unfortunately that isn't big enough to accommodate a space-saver spare wheel. A couple of bag hooks are provided on each side, but curiously, floor tie-down points seem to be missing. There's a netted recess to the left, while on the right you get a deep tray recess, above which is a light and a 12-volt socket. The inner tailgate includes a built-in warning triangle, but lacks the useful light that could have been placed there to shine down into the boot. Still, at least BMW specialises in 40-20-40 split rear seat backs, so that long items like skis can be slid in between a pair of rear-seated occupants. If you need to flatten everything, you'll be disappointed to see that cargo sidewall seat retraction catches have also been omitted. So you have to go round to the side doors and pull on these seat-based tie straps. When the backrest is pushed forward, you don't get a completely flat load space, nor are you offered the option of a fold-flat front passenger seat that would allow you to take, say, a ladder or a small kayak. Still, the total area provided should be as large as most owners will need, 1,600 litres with conventionally engined models and 1,495 with the plug-in hybrids and the iX1. As you might expect, the X1 costs a bit more in this third generation form. When we tested the updated version of its predecessor back in 2020, prices were starting at around £32,000. In contrast, at the time of this test in early 2023, This Mark III model was priced from around $34,000, but of course you'll need to add a chunk onto that for the kind of better spec variant you'd ideally want, a car like this one. At the time of filming, the plug-in hybrid variants were starting from just under £41,500. This is premium territory. Model for model, an X1 will cost you almost £3,500 more than you'd pay for an equivalent version of BMW's very similarly engineered but much less practical 1 Series hatch. But an X1 will save you around £4,000 less over the sportier looking X2 body style, the second generation version of which uses all the same mechanicals and at the time of this film was being readied in the final stages of pre-launch testing for introduction in 2024. With combustion X1 models, there's a choice of 3 trim levels: base sport, then mid-range X-line, and this top M Sport version. The top full electric iX1 cost from just over £52,000 at launch and came only with either X-line or M Sport trim. Whichever powertrain or trim level you select with this BMW, automatic transmission is now mandatory, the brand's latest sport automatic DTC gearbox. And bear in mind that if you select the base 18D diesel version, many will want that you don't get the 48-volt mild hybrid tech that's fitted to the other conventional petrol and diesel variants. Keeping the engine tech of that 18D diesel variant straightforward has enabled BMW to price it at about the same level as a directly comparable rival Audi Q3 35 TDI. That's just under £35,000, only a fraction more than a Range Rover Evoque D165 and about £3,500 less than a comparable Mercedes GLA 200D. Many potential BMW customers are going to prefer the petrol X1 S-Drive 20i, which at around £34,000 costs around the same as a Range Rover Evoque P200, around £1,000 more than a comparable Q3 35 TFSI S-Tronic, but around £2,000 less than a Volvo XC40 B3 and around £3,000 less than a Mercedes GLA 200. The magazines will also tell you to consider segment models like the Jaguar E-Pace and the Lexus NX, the latter only available as a non-plug-in petrol full hybrid. But at the time of this test, both of those two cars were considerably pricier, starting from well over £40,000 in the most affordable forms. The X1 looks a good choice in plug-in hybrid form. Yes, the base X-Drive 25e version is a couple of £1,000 more than a comparable Audi Q3 45 TFSIe, but it's considerably cleaner and more frugal than that PHEV and goes much further between charges. The same applies, by the way, in comparisons with the two other key segment rivals, Mercedes GLA 250e and Volvo's XC40 T4 plug-in hybrid, even though those two competitors will cost you around £2,000 to £3,000 more than a plug-in X1. Plug-in hybrid versions of the Range Rover Evoque and Jaguar E-Pace are vastly more expensive, knocking on the door of £50,000. As we've said elsewhere in this film, BMW's all-electric iX1 isn't our focus here, but it's worth a word on its value proposition before we go on. You might think the asking price at just over £52,000 from launch looks a little steep, particularly when you can have a Volvo XC40 Recharge pure electric from around £47,000 and an Audi Q4 Sport 40 e-tron from around £49,000. But those are less powerful front-driven cars, lacking the iX1's twin-motor all-wheel drive system. Order them in comparably powerful four-wheel drive forms and you'll pay about the same as an iX1 for an EV XC40, while a comparable Audi Q4 Sport e-tron 50 Quattro retailed at around £55,000 at the time of this test, as does a comparable Mercedes EQA 350 4MATIC. So, in terms of segment comparability at least, BMW's got its figures right. If, having considered all the alternatives, you've decided that it is an X1 that you really want, then you're going to need to know exactly what's included in the standard spec. Well, let's see. The base sport trim level gets 17-inch star spoke alloy wheels, roof rails, a powered tailgate and high-gloss shadow line exterior trim. Plus, you get Servotronic steering, LED headlamps, heated power mirrors, an alarm and auto headlamps and wipers, and a package of Active Guard Plus camera safety features. And we'll get onto those in a few minutes. There's loads of help for slotting this car into tight car parking bays too, not only parking sensors and a reversing camera, but also a parking assistant that automatically steers you into parallel or perpendicular spaces, and a reversing assistant that, when you return after parking up, can automatically reverse you along whatever path you've previously taken forward. Very neat. Inside, Sport trim gets you a 10.25-inch digital instrument display, 2-zone automatic air conditioning, front sport seats, a multifunction Sport 3-spoke leather-trimmed steering wheel, ambient lighting and velour floor mats. In addition, there's the My Modes drive mode system that, via personal, sport, efficient and expressive settings, allows you to alter throttle response, steering feel and gear change timing, all of it better suiting the way you want to drive. You'll want to know about infotainment and media stuff too. There's lots of it. So let's start with the fact that even with sport spec, X1 models get the full BMW Live Cockpit Plus BMW Operating System 8 package, which gives you a 10.7-inch centre dash touch control display maintained by remote software upgrades. This screen is your access point for a cloud-based BMW Maps navigation system, Bluetooth with audio streaming, 4G LTE connectivity, a DAB tuner, and a decent quality 6-speaker BMW stereo speaker system with a 100-watt amplifier. The car's BMW Operating System 8 setup also includes the latest version of the brand's clever, intelligent personal assistant. With this, naturally formulated spoken instructions can be used to do things like adjust the air conditioning, open a window, or operate the sunroof. Selected driver assistance systems can also be voice controlled. The other standard media package inclusion your dealer will want to tell you about on this car is called Connected Package Pro. That gives you a whole range of media connectivity services, though only for 3 years, after which you'll have a subscription to pay. Now, as you'd want in this day and age, these services include Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, but there's much more besides. Some of the other connected package professional features include real-time traffic information, which supplies details about the location and duration of any delays you might encounter on your journey, remote services, which helps you to locate your car if you've forgotten where you've parked it, and can remotely lock or unlock the doors from wherever you happen to be. Plus, there's a concierge services feature that connects you to a BMW call centre agent who's available as an around-the-clock assistant for any questions you might have about your car or your journey as you drive it. There's also connected parking, which offers multi-storey and on-street parking information in selected UK and European cities. BMW Maps, which allows you to send destinations to your car from your home or office PC, and an in-car experiences package, which adapts the interior ambience to suit your mood. The Connected Package Professional setup also includes connected music, which offers unlimited streaming of millions of songs from Spotify. As would now be expected from the brand, X1 customers additionally get a full suite of BMW connected drive services. These include teleservices, which can send you service appointments and vehicle-specific service data, BMW's suite of online services, which gives you access to things like news reports, weather forecasts and a whole range of BMW apps, and intelligent functionalities which learn your habits for greater journeying comfort and can read out text messages to you. Talking of being connected, all X1 owners will be offered use of a clever My BMW app that can learn your mobility routines, read your calendar, and even prompt you to when to leave for scheduled journeys. It'll get familiar with your most frequently travelled routes and memorise them as future destinations. It even has a share live trip status feature that allows the driver to share their current location and time of arrival with business partners, friends or family. All of that comes with standard sport trim. Ideally though, you'd want a little more equipment and polish as part of your X1 ownership experience, and the next trim level up, X-Line, gives you exactly that. Outside, things are lifted by an aluminium finish for the exterior trim and roof rails and bicolour shading for the 18-inch wheels, plus Pearl Effect chrome finishing for the front kidney grille. Inside, the cabin gains a stitched luxury instrument panel, high-gloss black interior trim, aluminium door sill covers, heated front seats and Sensatec man-made leather upholstery with contrast stitching that also covers the door shoulders and the upper instrument panel. At the top of the range, there's the M Sport trim level we have here, which dresses this car up to a significantly higher degree. You get 19-inch M double-spoke bicolour wheels, an aluminium front kidney grille, high-gloss shadowline roof rails and bespoke front and rear bumper styling. Also included is lowered M adaptive suspension, welcome light carpet puddle lights at night, power folding mirrors and adaptive LED headlights with a high beam assistant and a beam throw control that dips them in the face of oncoming traffic at night. There's also comfort access keyless entry, which additionally includes BMW's digital key plus feature, so that Apple iPhone users can open the car using an app on their handsets. Inside with M Sport spec, the cabin's lifted with blue stitched upholstery trimmed in a combination of Alcantara and man-made Sensatec leather. Plus there's aluminium hexacube dark interior trim, an anthracite headliner, a head-up display, a wireless phone charger and an auto-dimming rear view mirror. M Sport trim also gets you a chunky M Sport leather steering wheel with gear shift paddles that allow you to access an extra sport boost function. With this, if you pull the left-hand paddle for at least a second, all powertrain and chassis settings will be primed for maximum response. Choose the iX1 or one of the plug-in hybrid variants, and you also get BMW's iconic Sounds Electric package, developed by Hollywood composer Hans Zimmer to deliver a dynamic noise when your X1 is in full EV motion. The xDrive 23i combustion model we're trying here gets its own version of this package to produce a more dynamic engine note under acceleration. Right, enough with standard spec. What about options? Well, let's open up that whole subject and focus on what you might want to add to your chosen version of this car. As usual on a BMW, there's plenty of scope for extra spend. A good starting point here lies with the various optional packs, the main ones based around either comfort or technology. The comfort pack includes steering wheel heating and active seat driver powered seats with memory settings, the latter feature also available separately. If you've a preference for technology and have chosen either Sport or X-Line trim, then the optional technology pack will be offered to allow you to add in most of the key tech items from this pricier M Sport grade. Adaptive LED headlights, comfort access keyless entry, power folding mirrors, a high beam assistant, a wireless phone charger and an auto dimming rear view mirror. For the real BMW tech niceties though, you'll need the Technology Plus pack that we have here, available across the range, which includes a portfolio of key features that you'll want if you're to enjoy all of the technology this third generation model has to offer. First, there's the Parking Assistant Plus remote 3D view surround view camera system with surround view, panorama view and 3D view options that together create a 360-degree image of the vehicle and its surroundings. Also included is a remote 3D function that allows you to call up a three-dimensional live image of your car and its immediate vicinity on your smartphone. And there's the brand's clever new interior camera setup, which works via an overhead interior camera that can be used by the car's occupants to take snapshots during the journey, to be shared with friends and family via a QR code in the control display using the inbuilt Wi-Fi. Hours of fun. You could also use the interior camera when you're not even in the car, using your smartphone and the My BMW app remote function, which would be useful if, for instance, you wanted to glance inside the cabin to check whether bags or other items had been left inside. There's additionally the peace of mind of knowing that the interior camera will also be activated when the car's inbuilt remote theft recorder is triggered. The final element of the Technology Plus package is one that might tempt us most though, because it gets you the Live Cockpit Professional pack. You'll need that to get BMW's latest augmented view upgrade for the navigation system, which allows you to find your way with greater accuracy. With this, a live video stream from the driver's perspective is shown on the centre control display screen and augmented by supplementary information that matches the context. When dealing with confusing junctions, for instance, an animated directional arrow is integrated into the video image to help the driver take the best turn off for the planned route. Along your route, POIs or points of interest of relevance to the driver can also be highlighted in the live video stream, and tapping the indicated POI icons brings up further information on them, such as user ratings, opening times, and images. Augmented View can also help you search for a parking spot, this function displaying information on the applicable parking regulations on the control display monitor's split-screen view. The final optional pack we need to tell you about is another one fitted here, the M Sport Pro Pack. Offered with M Sport trim only for £1,500 more, this gives you larger 20-inch M multi-spoke wheels, extended high-gloss shadowline exterior trim, sun protection glass and a 12-speaker, 205-watt Harman Kardon surround sound audio system. Right, enough with packs. What about individual options? Well, we've got the two key ones here, the most essential being the sliding rear bench, not available in the plug-in hybrids, but otherwise near essential in this car for £300 more. And this allows the rear bench to slide back and forth over 1300mm. You can also add the twin-panel panoramic glass sunroof we've got here for a further £1,000. You might also want a luggage net for the boot, a tow bar, and as individual options, two niceties we've just mentioned, sun protection glass and the Harman Kardon surround sound audio system. Whatever kind of X1 you end up specifying, we'd recommend you find another 50 quid for the larger fuel tank, 9 litres bigger, but another thing not available with the plug-in hybrids. And if you happen to have chosen the S-Drive 18D diesel variant, you'll be offered the option of a space-saver spare wheel. You might also want to consider the BMW Trackstar vehicle tracking system in case of theft. And there's a travel pack with roof bars and a 420-litre black roof box, and a cycle pack with roof bars and a rack with a carrier for 2 touring bicycles. In terms of aesthetic upgrades, well, for the outside, it's a dispiriting trend on modern cars that you almost always have to pay more for your chosen paint colour, and that's continued here. The only standard choice is Alpine White, otherwise you'll need to find £595 more for one of the 6 optional metallic shades. You'll need nearly £1,000 more for the turquoisey Blue Bay Lagoon shade, and an astonishing £2,100 extra for the frozen pure grey paint finish that we have here. With base sport trim, you can upgrade to larger 18-inch wheels, and there are 19 and 20-inch wheel rim options for the two top trim levels. What about interior trimming? Well, if you avoid base sport trim and don't like the standard high gloss black finishing you get with X-Line trim or the aluminium Hexacube dark dash finishing that features with M Sport spec, there's the no-cost option in either case of swapping the standard package for either aluminium mesh effect trim or open-pored fine wood eucalyptus inlays. What else? Well, across the range for the few that'll want real hide-covered seats, there's the option to pay £1,150 more to add Vanaska leather upholstery in a choice of 3 shades. And with base sport trim, you can upgrade to the Sensatec man-made perforated leather we have here, which comes in a choice of 4 shades. Enough with optional extras, let's move on to focus on safety, which, as you'd expect from BMW, is well accounted for. Hence this car's full house 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating. Like the 1 Series and 2 Series models, this X1 features the Active Guard package that now features across all of BMW's modern cars, which gets you the brand's front collision warning, autonomous braking technology. With this at over 30 miles an hour, the vehicle scans the road ahead for potential accident hazards, and if one's detected, you'll be warned and the brakes pre-conditioned for maximum effectiveness. The driver can be specifically alerted to the presence of cyclists, and should you be travelling at under 30 miles an hour and be not responding to a detected hazard, the brakes will automatically be applied, reducing the severity of any resulting collision and hopefully alleviating it altogether. Active Guard also includes 2 further elements: lane departure warning to stop inattentive drivers from veering over lane delineating lines on the highway, and speed limit assist, which pictures the speed limit signs you pass, displaying them on the dash. Other neat safety features fitted as standard across the range include an alertness assistant that monitors you for signs of drowsiness, a trailer stabilisation function that'll stop trailer sway if you've a tow bar fitted, and hill start assistant to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions. Best of all, we think, is the BMW emergency call with teleservices system, which in an accident can automatically alert the emergency services. This system not only gives them your exact GPS location, but also provides recovery personnel with information on your speed at point of impact, how hard the seatbelts were pulled, how many airbags went off, and so on. If you were to have a crash, it would all mean not only that the emergency teams would know exactly where you were, but also that they would arrive on the scene more prepared and ready to get you to safety than they could ever otherwise be, a potentially life-saving difference. The setup's been further improved in recent times to also automatically activate after low-speed collisions below the threshold for airbag deployment, immediately after the impact, flashing up an iDrive screen message offering to contact BMW's Accident Assistant service directly. We shouldn't forget that this BMW comes with all the expected basic passive safety stuff too. Things like twin front, side and curtain airbags, plus front and rear ISOFIX child seat fastenings and the usual electronic assistance for traction and stability control. Primarily DSC Plus stability control and DTC traction control. Plus there's a performance control system that suppresses understeer in tight turns that will also see you experience extra traction from an electronic differential lock control system. There's plenty of braking peace of mind too, with the ABS system supplemented by fading compensation, CBC or cornering brake control, and a neat brake drying system that keeps the brake discs free of moisture in wet weather. Panic stops are aided by a brake assist system and advertised to following motorists by dynamic brake lights that flash a bright warning. You also get a multi-collision braking function that in the event of an impact will keep brake pressure applied until you come to a complete stop. Want to go further with safety kit? Well, the key extra cost option here is what BMW calls its Driving Assistant Professional Pack, which gives you a whole range of extra camera-based safety features. There's a lot here, so we'll try and talk you quickly through it all. First, there are lane change warning and lane departure warning systems with active return functionality. These able not only to prompt the driver if they're about to pull out with a vehicle in their blind spot, but also able, if necessary, to guide the car back onto the correct path by means of automatic steering input. A lane keeping assistant with active side collision protection setup keeps you in the centre of your lane and monitors traffic to your left and right that might be about to pull across into you. Rear collision prevention, meanwhile, senses when you're about to be struck from behind and braces the car to minimise impact on occupants. And there's crossing traffic warning front and rear, a setup that alerts you to oncoming traffic when you're inching out of a junction or reversing out of a space. Want more? Well, if so, that same driving assistant professional pack includes it. Approach control brakes the car immediately if the vehicle ahead slams on its brakes. Exit warning prevents you from opening any door when you might be opening it in the face of oncoming cyclists or vehicles. And evasion assist improves stability should you suddenly have to swerve to avoid something, directing the car into a clear adjacent lane with automatic steering inputs. If you're worried about keeping your licence with all the new low speed limits that keep springing up in urban areas, you'll be glad of automatic speed limit assist, which stops you from exceeding the prevailing speed limit, as recorded by the car's speed limit info system. And for the open road, this pack also includes active cruise control with stop and go, which actively varies your cruising speed between 19 and 112 miles an hour on the highway, and in the event of a tailback will automatically bring the car to a stop, then seamlessly start it off again, returning you to cruising speed. And finally, road priority warning alerts you to road priority signs you might have missed. And if your car has the live cockpit professional package, thanks to the pack's wrong way warning feature, your X1 will make a huge fuss if you try and turn the wrong way into a one-way street. It's all very reassuring. Because this third generation X1 adopts an updated version of BMW's UKL front-driven platform, almost all of its engines can now be had in some way electrified. For the UK market, only the S-Drive 18D base diesel variant escapes this trend. Otherwise, as we told you in our driving experience section, you'll be choosing between 3 conventional combustion units with the brand's 48-volt mild hybrid tech. 2 of them petrol-powered, the S-Drive 20i and this X-Drive 23i. Or there's a fast diesel, the X-Drive 23D. If that's not quite enough electrification for you, but you're not quite ready for the full electric iX1, then you'll be wanting to consider the 2 frugal plug-in hybrid variants, the X-Drive 25e and the X-Drive 30e. We'll get the base S-Drive 18D diesel out of the way first, which may not be electrified but has undergone an awful lot of redevelopment. The pistons, the turbocharger, the common rail injection system and exhaust gas recirculation setup have all been redesigned, and the result is a very creditable set of figures which might tempt you into ignoring the current zeitgeist against the black pump, up to 57.6 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 129 grams per kilometre of CO2. Want perspective? Well, these figures slightly better those of a rival Audi Q3 35, TDI S-Tronic, while a directly comparable Mercedes GLA 200D can only manage 53.3 mpg and 140 grams per kilometre. So, a tick for BMW there then. But it's the electrified variants that the brand really wants us to talk about. That 48-volt mild hybrid tech we mentioned earlier, fitted to the 3-cylinder 1.5-litre S-Drive 20i variant and to the 4-cylinder 2-litre X-Drive 23i model we're trying here. This setup works as mild hybrid systems these days usually do, fitting a powerful 48-volt starter generator, and a tiny second battery enables a significant increase in the amount of brake energy that can be regenerated and stored. This energy is used not just to supply the electrical system, but also to lighten the combustion engine's workload and boost its power. The starter generator also increases efficiency by assisting the engine when driving at constant speeds. As a result of all that, you get a set of WLTP rated stats that should get the approval of efficiency-minded family folk. For the S-Drive 20i, think up to 47.9 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 134 grams per kilometre of CO2, which translates into a useful running cost benefit over an unelectrified direct rival. To be specific, an X1 S-Drive 20i is about 5% more efficient than a rival Audi Q3 35 TFSI S-Tronic, and about 10% more efficient than a comparable Mercedes GLA 200. A slim advantage, true, but it does certainly add up over time. You'd expect the lighter 3-cylinder front-driven X1 S-Drive 20i to have a large efficiency advantage over the 4-cylinder larger capacity all-wheel drive X-Drive 23i model, but actually there's not a huge amount in it. For this X-Drive 23i, the official WLTP figures are up to 43.5 mpg and up to 146 grams per kilometre of CO2. For the alternative X-Drive 23D Performance Diesel, you're looking at up to 58.9 mpg and up to 125 grams per kilometre. If you want to do better, then you'll need to stretch your budget quite a bit further and stump up for BMW's 5th generation eDrive technology, which features in the plug-in hybrids. There are two this time round, both all-wheel drive variants with X-Drive, the X-Drive 25e and 30e. BMW's doubled the size of the PHEV battery this time around, from 7.6 kilowatt hours in the old X-Drive 25e to 14.2 kilowatt hours now, which has made a vast difference in the all-electric range, up from 32 miles to a possible maximum of 55 miles. And maximum charging capacity has dramatically risen too, up from 3.7 to 7.4 kilowatts, meaning that a full charge can be delivered in around 2.5 hours, or in just under 8 from a conventional household socket. The readings with both these two PHEVs are the same, and the usual pie in the sky 3-figure combined cycle fuel reading normally attached to plug-in hybrids applies as usual. Here it's quoted at between 353.1 and 403.3 mpg, though in reality you should probably expect similar returns to those you'd get from the S-Drive 18D diesel variant. Equally difficult to actually verify is the quoted CO2 reading, between 15 and 18 grams per kilometre, but the advantage here is that the government believes this figure, so both the X1 plug-in variants are BIK rated at just 8%. Compare that with the ratings of between 30 to 33% for the more conventional petrol and diesel models. Take that into account when you do your sums, and the extra purchase price outlay for one of these might actually pay for itself over a longer ownership cycle. It's worth pointing out too that all the figures just quoted are considerably better than those you'd achieve from BMW's closest rivals. A Mercedes GLA 250e plug-in manages 201.8 mpg and 31 grams per kilometre, and a best EV range of 39 miles. In an Audi Q3 45 TFSIe plug-in, it's 176.6 mpg, 36 grams per kilometre and 31 miles. And with a Volvo XC40 T4 plug-in hybrid, it's 134.5 mpg, 47 grams per kilometre and 28.6 miles. So don't let anyone tell you that plug-in hybrid small SUVs of this kind are all the same. Whatever kind of combustion X1 power plant you choose, it'll benefit from the brand's various efficient dynamics technologies, there to keep running costs in check. There's an engine auto start-stop system, as you would expect, and at highway speeds, when you're in either the personal or the efficient drive mode, the cruise control can use a coasting feature to seamlessly decouple the engine from the transmission to reduce friction and consequently save fuel. The coasting and auto-stop functions take their cue from data supplied by the navigation system. The same data is used by the Steptronic auto gearbox to avoid unnecessary gear changes in a quick succession of bends. Sleek aerodynamics also help. This Mark III model's drag factor has improved to 0.28 CD, down from 0.32, and that's aided by a 10-stage adjustable active air flap for the kidney grille and the lower air intake. Air curtains in the front apron, flush-fitting door handles, aero-optimised wheels, and a virtually fully sealed underbody with exhaust tailpipes integrated out of sight. Weight optimised construction with hot stamped steels and aluminium alloys also helps. A starting curb weight of 1,625 kilos isn't bad for a car of this size and sophistication. Of course, the driver will also need to do their part. The figures we've just quoted assume that the car's being run in the My Mode system's most frugal, efficient setting. In this mode, the air conditioning and power steering only work when required to save energy. Of course, if you really want ultimate efficiency from your X1, you'll want to avoid having it with any kind of engine at all, but that requires you to make the considerable extra outlay necessary to get the all-electric iX1 variant. This offers a 64.7 kilowatt-hour usable capacity battery which can deliver a driving range figure of up to 272 miles between charges. The combined charging unit in the iX1 xDrive 30 enables single and three-phase AC charging up to 11 kilowatts, which can optionally be increased to 22 kilowatts with a three-phase AC supply. This allows the battery to be fully recharged from empty in 6.5 hours as standard, and just 3 hours 45 minutes with a 22 kilowatt option fitted. DC recharging at up to 130 kilowatts makes it possible to boost the battery level from 10 to 80% in 29 minutes, or increase range by 75 miles in just 10 minutes. Here though, our focus has been on combustion-powered X1 models. What else might you need to know about the costs involved in running one of those? Well, residual values should be strong, but bear in mind, as usual, with a premium product, that if you load your car up with expensive extras, you're unlikely to get that money back at resale time. An exception though might be the sliding rear bench option, which many used customers will be looking for. Onto the warranty package. BMW's warranty only lasts for 3 years, but it includes an emergency breakdown service, and at least it isn't mileage limited, unlike the comparable package you'd get as standard with a rival Mercedes. You can of course extend the warranty with either monthly or annual payments. There's a 3-year paintwork warranty and the usual 12-year anti-corrosion warranty. Petrol model insurance ratings start at Group 25 to 26E for the S-Drive 20i. It's Group 31 to 32E for the X-Drive 23i variant we're trying here. Diesel model insurance ratings start at Group 24 to 25E for the S-Drive 18D, or Group 30 to 32E for the X-Drive 23D. For the petrol plug-in hybrids, it's Group 29 to 31E for the X-Drive 25E, and Group 33 to 34E for the X-Drive 30E. For the fully electric iX1, the groupings are either 37 or 38E. What else? Well, routine maintenance is dictated by condition-based servicing that monitors oil level and engine wear, taking into account how long it's been and how far the car has travelled since its previous garage visit. You can check all of this using menus in the iDrive centre dash display. The centre dash screen's vehicle status section tells you tyre pressures, engine oil level, service requirements, and offers a check control screen for monitoring major wear and tear items. Plus, the car will give you 4 weeks notice of when a check-up's needed, so you've plenty of time to book it in. A teleservices feature comes as part of the BMW Connected Drive services that you can also access through the iDrive infotainment system. Via this, before each service appointment's due, your X1 can automatically put in a tele-services call to your nominated BMW service centre, complete with detailed information on vehicle condition. You'll then get a call to arrange a service appointment, something you'll already have budgeted for if, at the point of original purchase, you opted for one of the two fixed cost Service Inclusive or Service Inclusive Plus packages, which cover you for 5 years or 50,000 miles. With these, after a one-off payment, you'll have peace of mind knowing that all normal work on the car has been paid for during this period, including items such as oil, spark plugs and filters. Finally, there are the green issues involved in this X1's production. This third generation model has a much higher degree of recyclability at the end of its life cycle, thanks to copious use of recycled plastics throughout. And it's made in a Regensburg factory that claims to be carbon neutral and now manufactures its aluminium wheels entirely using green electricity. The PHEV and EV models don't use rare earth metals and have battery cells with only fractional use of cobalt. All good to know. The X1 has taken a big step forward here. There's a step forward in price too, of course, but we think many potential customers will feel that to be justified, given the considerable evolution in maturity now on display. The previous X1 was very much an SUV bought by those who couldn't quite afford an X3. This car, though, has moved on, and once you've tried it, you might well feel that there aren't too many reasons to pay considerably more for that larger model. Perhaps more pertinently, for most families, this X1 would also make more sense than a comparably sized and priced 3 Series Touring estate. It's not perfect, of course. On the move, we wish the drive experience wasn't spoiled by anaesthetised steering, and not all of the interior upgrades are welcome. We miss the old model's physical climate switchgear and lower iDrive controller, and that old car's more affordable pricing and manual gearbox option. In every other way, though, this third generation X1 is a vast improvement. If you're not ready to make the switch to the iX1's full EV drivetrain, ideally you choose one of the plug-in hybrids, which might even offer the ultimate combination of frugality, practicality and performance in a small family SUV. But that would be a pricey step to take. Most will be satisfied with the kind of more conventional mild hybrid drivetrain we've been trying here. They won't be getting the ultimate driving machine, BMW's famed advertising strapline, because that's not what they need. Getting instead what might very well be one of the market's most desirable small crossovers could, though, suit them very well indeed. There's a cost attached to that, of course. As is the case with premium brand rivals, opting for one of these requires quite a price stretch if you started out looking at mainstream branded Qashqai class family crossover contenders of this size, even quite a nice one. Still, make that step and you'll be getting yourself a much higher quality product that'll pay back quite a lot of its price premium at resale time. And in summary, well, thanks to this redesign, we think the X1 will continue to number amongst the best-selling contenders of its kind. The brand might continue to prefer not to call this an SUV, but the truth is that amongst compact models, the X1 continues to epitomise the kind of car that term now defines in today's market. It delivers all the key elements needed from a modern, fashion-led compact family crossover, but also has an essential dose of that BMW want one factor that's done so much for the Munich maker's sales. You'll need to be convinced of that to choose one, but if you are, you'll find this Bavarian model difficult to ignore in this overcrowded sector. The X factor? You might well think this car has it.